Hello and welcome to the 42's Rugby Show, live on Facebook from our newsroom here in Dublin. As always, we're joined by Murray Kinsella, who's still at the Rotorua International Stadium, where the Lions have just beaten the New Zealand Maori. Murray, that was a big victory in every sense of the word, really, for the Lions. It was a big statement of intent heading just 7 days, I suppose, before the first test.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was certainly required after we saw the All Blacks absolutely dismantle a really poor Samoa team in Eden Park last night. They looked really impressive, they looked really sharp as they kind of came back together for their first test of the year. So I think that the Lions did need a response, and they certainly sent one out. Their forward pack was absolutely immense, set piece incredibly powerful, and I think the All Blacks will have seen little things that will worry them in that performance. And even now, Gatland's come out kind of biting back at Steve Hansen after the game. There's a bit of sense of momentum now for the Lions, and I think we're going to get a competitive test series. It's what everyone wanted, so yeah, it's happy days. It's great to see the Lions deliver that performance so close to the test series.
Yeah, as you said there, that performance and the result was underpinned by another solid defensive performance, but also the power of the pack. Like, they really overpowered the New Zealand Maori throughout the game, and they didn't let their explosive backline get any ball, really. Hugely encouraging signs, I suppose, from that point of view.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that period where Taura Kerr-Barlow goes off for the yellow card. Could actually got red for that, actually. They cited some mitigating circumstances, but I don't think there really was. Yeah. Anyway, the Lions pack get on with it. They get to the scrum and they destroyed them on the first scrum. Second one brings a penalty try. And Tyke Furlong was immense there. Mako Vunipola, where you maybe had small doubts around the scrum, and Jamie George really powerful. Plus that second row, George Cruz, and Maro Itoje, really strong drive from them as well. So it was a really kind of cohesive unit performance, as well as that back row shoving in there as well. I thought it was really tight from the Lions pack all day, and the Maori All Blacks couldn't give that. They looked like a side who have actually come together a couple of weeks ago, and they looked very kind of disjointed in how they defended mauls and at scrum time, whereas the Lions pack looked really solid. These guys have now been training together for a number of weeks. It's not the kind of story at the start of the tour where these guys have just come together and they didn't really know each other's strengths. Now they understand each other. Now you're seeing Jamie George work off Tyke Furlong at scrum time. Tyke Furlong was just so disciplined in how he drove forward, really straight through. And it was really, really impressive performance from that pack, as well around the pitch, in the tight exchanges, the ball carrying, the good hits around the fringes, and even the leadership, even hearing guys like Peter O'Mahony over the ref mic, Sean O'Brien, getting into people's faces, a really aggressive, kind of combative performance from the Lions. And yeah, it's exactly what they needed to deliver. We always knew that this was going to be their strength on this tour. The kicking game, again, exceptional tonight with Conor Murray and Johnny Sexton, who I think we'll chat about a bit later. He had a really good game. But we knew those were going to be the strengths of the Lions. We knew what the All Blacks were going to bring, and they showed that against Samoa last night. So it's all shaping up for a really fascinating test series.
Yeah, we're gonna touch on a few of the concerns heading into that first test in a moment. But there was plenty of positives from this morning. One of those being the fact that they've now kept the Maori and the Crusaders to just a combined total of 13 points in those two games over the last 2 weekends. Like, that's hugely encouraging when you consider the strength of the All Blacks next week. I know it's going to be on a completely different level, as you kind of touched on at the start. The All Blacks, their first game in 2017, hammering Samoa yesterday. But I mean, in terms of Warren Gatland, there's a huge amount of encouragement there to go into this week to work on.
Yeah, and particularly when you look at what the Lions actually did and how they defended, the kind of opportunities that they limited for the Maori All Blacks. They didn't give them a lot of counter-attacking chances. So when they kicked, the chase this week was a lot better. You saw Anthony Watson get up a few times. They won a penalty off a Conor Murray box kick. We hadn't really seen that competition in the air, and the Maori All Blacks didn't really get to counter-attack. The only time they really threatened the Lions was when they took those kind of quick line-outs, when they threw something kind of unstructured at the Lions' defence. That's when you see them stretch, and that's where the All Blacks are so powerful. So to see the Lions limit that kind of stuff is really encouraging for the Test series, and I think they'll need to do that again in Eden Park next weekend.
Yeah, certainly the foundations are there, and we've spoken about them, but at the same time there is still concerns and I suppose question marks hanging over the creativity, of the side. And we saw on 2 occasions, Jonathan Davis and Ben Teo in the second half both made decent line breaks. They failed to convert those chances, and while there was two tries scored, 1 penalty try and Maro Itoje, those both came from the forwards and the dominant pack. There is still question marks and a slight concern over that lack of finishing ability.
Yeah, well, the 2 tries, they came from the set piece. They came from those close range scrums. That's where they're going to build many of their tries from, of course. That's always the platform. But I think they do need to be more clinical. We've spoken about it. It's been a theme really in our chats here after the games. they're creating chances in their face play shape again. I thought it looked nice. Yeah, Johnny Sexton making really good decisions, whether to go to the front door and hit one of those hard running forward carriers, or to pull out the back door, where he didn't maybe have Owen Farrell, who they're hoping to have next weekend. So they're creating nice opportunities. They're looking good in their face play shape, but they just have to find that clinical edge. Jonathan Davies makes a break. Can he get a wing off his shoulder? That's where the back three really need to work hard, and just offer up that kind of finishing, scoring pass, and then just the accuracy of the pass as well. So I think in the next week, that'll be a key focus again for the Lions, but the rest of it's looking pretty good.
You mentioned Johnny Sexton there a couple of times. Obviously, he got the opportunity to start at 10 again tonight. Like, he really put in an assured performance, and it really looks like he's getting back to his best now. There's a bit of confidence there and a swagger to his game as well.
Yeah, I think he probably likes being ridden off. It's happened to him so many times in his career, and he always bounces back really strongly. Started the tour really poorly rather against the Barbarians, but he's really built back into it. He looked himself straight from the off tonight. He darted at the line a few times, showed that he's not all about that kicking game. He had a few nice offloads as well, and as well as that, he had the kicking. There was one exceptional one down into the right corner in the first half, just in behind the Maori backfield. Just a brilliant kick that bounced into touch. So he's showing all those signs of getting back to his best, and he needed to nail that audition. There's a doubt over Farrell, so the Lions needed a big playmaker to step up, and Sexton did that really impressively, to the point that I don't think that the Lions can go into the Test series without him now. If Farrell's fit, for me, he has to play at 12, and you get those two of your best players on the pitch at the same time. And having shown a really nice link against the Crusaders as well, where they kind of played off each other quite intuitively, and showed signs of having that second pair of hands, the value of it in a backline. So for me, Johnny Sexton played himself into the Test team here tonight.
A good night for Sexton, also again for Tyke Furlong, who continues to be immense on this tour at tight head. Peter Mahoney as well, captain. It was a proud night for him, and he really stood up. So it was a good night for the Irish all round, I suppose.
Yeah, really go around. Really interesting to see Peter Mahoney build such a good relationship with Jaco Paper, the referee tonight. That's a key role in any big Test match, and he got in there early. It took a bit of time to kind of get that influence over the ref, but it eventually worked. He didn't have a whole lot to do around the pitch, Mahoney, but there's something kind of intangible about what he offers a team. Warren Gatland has referenced it. It's that Munster kind of ethos and spirit, and you can certainly see it from the stands, even if it's not in a carry or a tackle. Sean O'Brien offers something similar. There's so much energy to everything he does, and then he smashes through lads on a ball carry. I thought he showed really good breakdown skills tonight, and he needed to show that, given that Sam Warburton is kind of perceived as the breakdown open side. So those guys went really well. We spoke about Furlong and pressing. Even I thought Ian Henderson off the bench showed that he can ball carry really well. And listen, there's a bit of question mark over who's going to start in the second row, but Ian Henderson is a really good option off the bench. I think Jack McGrath, again, solid, and showed a few nice touches around the pitch as well. So yeah, for me, it was a great night for the Irish involved, and they look like they're really working off the guys from the other nations as well.
Before we came on air, we were just kind of discussing the positions that are still up for grabs, or the real question marks hanging over certain positions, and I think it's fair to probably say fullback, wing, and as you touched on there, second row, or probably three, selection headaches that Gatland will have heading into next week. Is that kind of fair to say, and how would you kind of assess those positions now after today's game?
Yeah, for me, fullback is decided. I thought Lee Halfpenny showed more than enough there. He was 100% off the tee. He was really assured under the high ball, really good defensive positioning. And Gatland kind of challenged him to show a bit more in attack. And I thought he did that. A few nice runs off scrum platform. He popped in a first receiver once, even at one stage, which we rarely see from him. So I thought he did more than enough. I think he's going to be the Test 15, especially with his experience. The wings, a bit of a concern. I think Anthony Watson did enough. I think he'll hold his place. But George North had a really poor game. He looks so timid. I don't know what's going on with him, but his body language is poor. He's not the imposing big wing that he should be. So I think he actually played himself out. And it'll be interesting to see if the Lions go and back him now and say, listen, we know we can do this at a big level, or go with Elliot Daly, perhaps Liam Williams. So there's a good decision to make there. In the second row, it's kind of a different story because you have so many strong options. Maro Itoje, apart from one silly penalty, was immense, I thought. And George Cruz, I think, is a definite starter for me as the line-out leader. So it's kind of between Itoje and Alan Wynne-Jones. Two really good options. But as I mentioned before, if Alan Wynne-Jones doesn't start, Ian Henderson, I think, may just sneak in on that bench as well. But they're the kind of decisions he has to make, plus the 12 decisions. Farrell, if he's fit, does he come back in at 12? Ben Teo, Benteo rather, was really impressive again. He just beats tackles so easily. So, yeah, I think there's a few big calls there, but most of that test side is settled.
Yeah, a few big calls obviously there to make, and the narrative before the game and all the talk before the game was of Gatland's decision to call up a couple of players this morning, and four of them being Welsh, and just after the game, two of them since being confirmed being Scottish. Obviously a lot of talk here that none of the Irish players got called up. I suppose Keith Earls has been in sensational form all season, and he's continued on the Japanese tour. Like, I mean, what is kind of the talk been on the ground there? And I know you've just come from Gatland's press conference. What did he kind of have to say?
Yeah, he said he can understand the question marks, the concerns. He can understand if people are saying this devalues the Lions. But his point, he just keeps coming back to it. I'm here to win a test series. And for him, flying these guys in from Australia, and the Welsh lads were already in New Zealand. They were actually here at the match today. They're here, they're ready to go into training. They're not going to be jet lagged. He says they're just here to sit on the bench. So for him, it's not as big an issue. But I can understand the concerns back home. It does devalue winning a Lions jersey if a guy who is not even first choice, perhaps isn't even second choice for Wales, is getting flown into a squad. You know, like Corey Hill, a good Pro 12 player, but he's just still establishing himself with Wales, and he's flying in here. You mentioned Keith Earls, but we have to remember the positions he's actually called players in. He hasn't called a winger in. He's kind of shored up that front row, so and the locks. So for me, probably a guy like Cian Healy has more right to feel aggrieved. Maybe even Donncha Ryan, Devin Toner, those kind of guys. And then for Scotland, you know, Johnny Gray's on tour. Why is he not getting called up as that second row option? So you have to remember those positions that he wanted a bit of reinforcement in. He lost a back row in Ross Moriarty today, and didn't bring one in there. But look, I can definitely understand people's frustrations and the fact that, look, the Lions have been out here trying to win hearts and win minds in New Zealand and impress the locals, but you got to remember what's going on at home too. And for a lot of people, that move is really going to make them lose a bit of love for the Lions, I think, and I can definitely understand that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just looking ahead, and you know, obviously the All Blacks game will be now the focus. But the All Blacks, you saw them yesterday in Auckland, and they were, you know, as we said earlier, their first game in 2017, and Steve Hansen has been kind of playing the mind games for a while now. What did you kind of make of the All Blacks yesterday? Obviously Samoa weren't probably the level of opposition they might have wanted, but to dust a few cobwebs off and run in 12 tries was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I don't think we really learned anything new about the All Blacks. They're really good at rugby. We knew that much. And if you give them turnover ball, if you give them a good set piece platform, they're going to score tries. There's no doubt about that. You got to limit those turnover, kick return chances. Hansen, yeah, he came out swinging again after in the press conference. He had another few snipes at Gatland, saying, listen, he's talked about this surprise that he has something up his sleeve. I can't see anything except his arm. A few other little things about the style of play, and he's been chipping away at him. Really interesting that Warren Gatland came out after this game, and he was prepared. He was ready. He said, I've had enough of this. I'm going to have a bite back. And he spoke about how focused Hansen has been on the lines, that the All Blacks aren't normally like that. And maybe it's a sign that Hansen is feeling a bit of pressure, that he's a bit worried that the Lions have the strength to really take on the All Black side. I thought it was really good that Gatland rather came and said those things. And, you know, the perception maybe has been that he's getting walked over a bit by Hansen, who's so charming and suave and savvy with the media. But Gatland comes out with a bit of a bite there and says the All Blacks may be worried. So really interesting to see that dynamic between the two head coaches off the pitch. Realistically, what does it mean in the end? Possibly not too much, but if there's a little advantage to be gained by getting in the All Blacks' heads, making them think, listen, your coach is going off on one about us a little bit too much, then there's definitely a positive there. So yeah, I think both those coaches are going to enjoy the victory, whoever gets it on the weekend.
Yeah, sure. Just before we finish up, Murray, obviously a couple of people have been asking questions live on Facebook, and we touched on it before. Peter O'Mahony, obviously captain today, and he was sensational. But Jason McCabe asking on Facebook, has he played himself into the starting team? But I suppose the question is he going to be captain for next week if he does start? I mean, obviously Sam Warburton replaced O'Mahony halfway through the second half this morning. I mean, what do you kind of make of that, and do you feel that O'Mahony is the perfect candidate to lead the Lions next Saturday?
Yeah, for me, he's done enough. He's done enough to be in that test team, certainly. He gives you a great line-out option. Maybe didn't see the steals tonight, but he's just so good in the set piece. And as you mentioned, that leadership. So for me, yeah, he's in the team as a test captain, actually, because I don't think Alan Wynne-Jones is going to be inside either. And I think Sean O'Brien has nailed down the 7 shirt. The concern, I guess, for O'Mahony is that Gatland goes with Warburton and O'Brien, one of them slotting over to the 6 shirt. And I still think that's a very real option in Gatland's mind. I'm looking forward to another watch of that game. I didn't think Warburton had too much of an effect when he came on, and for me, the two Irish flankers have been exceptional on this tour. So for me, Peter O'Mahony starts as Test captain, but I'm not quite sure that Gatland fully agrees with that yet.
Sure. Next up, obviously, is, as we've touched on, Tuesday against the Highlanders. You're moving to Hamilton now, so it's going to be quite a short week in terms of prep for the Lions now heading into that first test.
Yeah, a really weird fixture now on Tuesday. It kind of just underlines the lack of value that is in this fixture on the Tuesday for the Lions. It's great for the Chiefs. It's going to be an amazing occasion again, but they've got a test in a week's time, and they want to focus on that. You're getting guys flown in to just sit on a bench, and maybe a little bit difficult for those Lions players to get motivated for the Chiefs game. So I think there's a tricky fixture in store there. But yeah, then it's onwards to Auckland, into the big city. There's Lions fans flooding in. I know a few people are arriving over and picking up their camper vans in the next couple of days as well. So it's really kicking off. And I think the players who play tonight will be really excited to get back to Auckland and into that kind of test atmosphere. An important couple of days training. We've mentioned stuff that they need to work on, that clinical finishing, but yeah, they've put themselves in a good place tonight. Yeah,
last week, Murray, after the victory against the Crusaders, I mean, it was you were getting the sense that this tour was really kicking off. The atmosphere was building. A lot more Lions fans arriving. Again, this week it seems to have been notched up. You know, we talked about the mind games there, and there seems to be a lot more happening around this series and a lot more talk about it. I mean, will it go up another notch now this week ahead of the test?
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty rowdy here afterwards. We're coming out of the press box and there was a bit of a guard of honour by a group of English fans kind of cheering every journalist coming out. Little things like that. There's a lot more kind of costumes and a lot more colour at the games. Those Lions chants. Even there was a particularly powerful haka before the game here. The Maori were really fired up. A really special moment with the kind of smoke over the pitch after a fireworks display. And then you hear the Lions chant come in. So I think that does lift players. It may be kind of cheesy to talk about that, but they're away here in New Zealand. The pressure has been on them from Hansen, from the New Zealand media, and those Lions fans definitely give them a lift. They're going to see more of them around the streets in Auckland, where when they're walking around in their little groups, getting a coffee, bumping into people who have been saving for years to come on this tour. You know, it's a massive moment in their lives, so that means something, and I definitely, you can feel that picking up certainly on the ground over here.
Yeah. We'll obviously catch you in Hamilton again on Tuesday after that final warm-up game, but I suppose just your instant reaction after today's game, because this is obviously going to be more a reflection of the team we're going to see in Auckland. I mean, do the Lions head into next weekend in good stead now? Obviously there's still, as we've touched on, a lot of big calls for Gatland to make and a lot of things to work on, but 7 days out, I mean, are they in a decent place heading into Auckland?
Yeah, they're in good nick. They're in good nick. I still think the All Blacks are going to win on Saturday and win the Test series, and I think that's been the case the whole way through. I think we've seen what we expected to see. The Lions are strong up front, strong kicking game. The All Blacks are going to be brilliant on counter-attack, brilliant in open play, and it's a nice clash of styles. I'm so excited for that first Test. I think everyone is, and after all the kind of build-up and all the hype, we're finally here. The Lions have shown that they're going to be competitive, so yeah, bring on that first Test.
Yeah, we certainly waited with eager anticipation. Maori Kinsella, thanks a million for joining us.
Cheers.
We'll catch you on Tuesday. Thanks a million. Thanks for watching.